What's up, everybody? Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, 2018 Innovation Award winner from the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And very happy to always have this young lady on the Dr. Vibe platform with the ears. She grew a pair of ears since I last saw her. It is Dr. Tachi, and we're going to be having a conversation here. Oh, Claude Diamond has joined on Periscope. Thank you much,
Hey, Claude.
And also welcome to Galen Bingham on the Get Vocal. You can also, Galen, let me give shout outs. Claude, when you want to get great education, knowledge, and guidance in sales, Claude Diamond, amazing. Claude Diamond has taught me a lot of stuff. I'm not in the real estate field, which is his main area, but he has taught me a lot about sales techniques. Now, on the other side, Galen Bingham, over 25 years, leadership in corporate America. And also much love and respect to you for sight. But getting back to Galen Bingham, if you want to enhance your leadership skills, turn to him. That's all I got to say. Turn to him. So Claude and Galen, thank you so much. Again, if you want to put your contact information in the chat, you're more than welcome. Let's get back to the main star tonight with the ears. and just want to say, too, already she's done a conversation on her program, Mediascope, earlier on tonight. And I'm sure she'll share about that in her introduction. But welcome back, Dr. Tachi. And I got her name right in the post. So I feel good today. She has no reason to be mad at me. So Tachi, for those who don't know all about you, what can you share with us?
Okay, so my name is Tachi, or Dr. Tachi as some people call me. I'm a media professor, a filmmaker, a media content producer, and I'm a journalist. I do a couple of shows besides the Conversations with Dr. Vibe. I actually do a show every Wednesday, and as Dr. Vibe mentioned, I just got off of Mediascope, where I talk about the week in media, tech, and pop culture. And that's on Periscope and Facebook Live, and also on WJMSradio.com. And I also do a podcast, which called TV Channeling, where we do TV reviews, film, entertainment, and television news. And I do that with my friend Kevin out in LA. And that's on all major podcasting platforms, plus WJMS.com. How was that, Dr. Vibe? Good?
That was beautiful. There was a time I had to remind you of all the different things you were doing, but
yes.
You got it down pat now.
Yes. And I've probably forgotten some stuff, but that's irrespective of everything. So
absolutely. And we both want to say a big special shout out to Miss CEO Jamie at WJMS. We are speaking it that you're going to get better in good time. So thank you for allowing myself and Dr. Tachi on your platform. We have you in prayer and in spirit. So we know you're going to get better soon. And we should get Jamie on one of these with both of us.
Oh, yeah, that would be absolutely fantabulous.
Actually, and you know what would be great? We could actually do a conversation about the power of collaboration.
Oh, that would be really good. That would be really good, because this space is all about collaboration. We have nobody in this space but ourselves, in terms of support. So collaboration is key.
Absolutely. Well, I've been blessed for the last few years to have Dr. Tachi come on and do a roundup about the year in media, tech, and pop culture. I don't know how long this is going to be. I know we're not going to get to everything. Oh, also shout out to Divine Right on YouTube. Thank you so much. And
hey,
the Tachi crew, the Mediascope crew, is going to crash this broadcast, which is a good challenge to have. So we usually do a year-end in media, tech, and pop culture. And if anyone would like to jump in, please do. Hello, Ellie on Get Vocal. Hello, Curtis on Get Vocal. Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, comments, whether it's on Periscope, Get Vocal, YouTube, I will answer them to the best of my ability. And as I always say, if I had my head down, because I'm typing away, either answering or responding to comments, I'm not being rude. So, Tachi, the gate is open.
Sir.
Let's make it happen. Go for it.
Oh, starting with me, huh?
Well, okay. If you want already, you know what? You foresight on Periscope has said, I see Facebook has been a big topic of the year. even to the point where the NAACP is asking people to ban Facebook, especially Black Americans.
For the first time, probably people will listen to what the NAACP says. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Well, okay. So let's be real. I used to be a college president of a chapter of the NAACP. So I was the president of the University of Buffalo chapter. But you know, a lot of organizations that are older organizations, sometimes they stay rooted in what they know. And so I'm actually very glad to see them taking on challenges that involve new technology, because and try to protect people while taking on new technology, try to protect those of us that need it from the new technology. So I'm happy to say that I'm happy to see that. So that's good. So in terms of you, Foresight, you're right on track. Until we just talked about Facebook today. And in fact, on my list, that was number one in terms of the big events. So the Facebook breaches, and because of the Facebook breaches, if you remember, there came from Europe the GDPR, which was the General Data Protection Rules, or General Data Protection Regulation. So that basically was to protect consumers from having their information, their data, inadvertently shared. And so Facebook has been in a lot of hot water. I mean, I don't understand how they have skin. They've been in so much boiling water. I don't get it.
But has Facebook become one of those, like when they had the bank crisis in the US? Are they too big to fail?
No, this is why we don't need Facebook. They can fail all day. They could go away tomorrow and we'll be okay. Think about it. Facebook is an accessory to business. There are a lot of people who carry on business on Facebook, etc. But okay, for those of us, for example, that live stream on Facebook, and you're conducting, Dr. Vibe, I'm sure you do some coaching via Facebook, maybe, and a little bit.
Not that often, to be honest. I'm not okay. I'm not a huge Facebook person because I've never been a fan of the platform because of back then. I didn't get into it, and now even less so. Like, I only use Facebook if I'm going to promote an upcoming conversation, but it's hardly ever on their platform.
Yeah, no, well, and so you're the point exactly. And Claude Diamond makes a point in terms of when you said too big to fail, let them join Blockbuster, Video Meerkat, etc. That's exactly the point. There will always be other platforms. This is not 100% necessary. So though we've made it necessary for business, social media is very integral for business nowadays. There are always platforms. So if tomorrow Facebook says, you know what, the fines that the U.S. has levied against us and the rest of the world are just too much, we have to shut down. Yeah, we'll see when that ever happens. But if that ever happens, there are other platforms that we could go to. Something always rises like a phoenix out of the ashes. So they are not too big to fail. They could go away tomorrow, and in my opinion, all would be right with the world. They're not an integral service like a bank or the auto industry. Though they would like to think they are. They do, I call them master of none. So they do a lot of things, but they don't do any one thing well.
But they keep on doing more and more different things.
Yes.
On their different platforms. And I would say they're not the master doing one thing well, they're the master of copy.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So I stand corrected. They are a master of something, copying, because every single thing that they have, even Facebook as a platform itself, before Facebook was MySpace and a lot of these other platforms. So, and that's not to say that there's no room in the digital space for any other platforms. Absolutely there is. But I'm like, they have been so blatant with the copying, not even bothering to change the name of things. Stories is one of the things on my list as a big thing this year. They didn't even bother to change the name. They just said, we shall call this Stories. And it's exactly the same thing that Snapchat did.
I'm just keeping up with some of the comments here, especially on the Periscope side. Uford side saying, I never thought I'd see the NAACP go after Facebook. And Claude Diamond says, 1 billion here, there. You're talking about real money. Actually, you Foresight has an interesting question. If Facebook shut down, what would happen to our data?
Does it matter? It's already out there per Facebook. Honestly, at this point, for us to try and feign or fake the funk in terms of, now, doing something with data, I don't think at this point it really matters because they've already sold or done whatever they're going to do with data. It's already out there. So even if they broke down, maybe they would say, well, to hell with you, we'll just sell it to whoever. That could be something that happened. But then again, they would be fined to high heaven. But at this point, at this juncture, I don't think it matters because the data is already out there. In fact, this latest data breach that we're hearing about that just happened is Amazon, Spotify. There are a few companies that had access, not necessarily to the data. Well, the data are messages. So they gave Facebook gave these companies access to our messages. And there are 150 companies, among them Amazon and Spotify.
Nice. A lot of great comments going on here. Charles is saying social networks are going to become more niche. And Ellie says, and data stealers. Galen has said they are data collection company. If you're not the client, then you're the product. Very well put.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
JZ None, I believe, if I have it correct on Periscope, is saying, I want MySpace to reopen as it was back in the day. MySpace made Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. I've been on Facebook since the very beginning, since 2004, when you had to have an educational account in order to participate. So, I was on it in the very early days before I'm sure Zuckerberg and the team at the time dreamed that it could be what it is, where they've become entrenched in so many different areas. So, it was just a social network before.
Excellent. Just want to add to anyone who's on the Get Vocal platform, we have some spots open. If you want to ask some questions, make some comments, you're more than welcome to come on cam if you'd like. One of the things Divine Right is asking on YouTube is, did Facebook get too big too fast?
That's a good question. I think, yes, I think that they're too big. Whether or not it's too fast is beyond the point. I think that they are too big. They are too big and they need to be broken up. Part of the thing that made them so large is diversifying into all these different areas. And I keep calling them the master of none because it's like you're getting into all these different areas because you see opportunities there. But are you getting into all these areas with your eyes wide open? Are you fully understanding what it takes? Now, here's the thing. These were the same idiots, but these were the same idiots who said, oh, well, we're not a media company. We're a tech company. And then had to backtrack and say, well, we are a media company, but a different type of media company. I'm sorry. You broadcast one to many. You whether it's through video or through text, that is media. So the fact that they didn't understand that in the beginning shows that they're working. I don't know who was advising them, but it's like you're working with people who don't really understand or don't truly understand simply because you see an opportunity. You don't always have to take every opportunity until you are prepared to deal with it. And they simply weren't. So in terms of being too soon, maybe it was too soon because they didn't fully understand all the areas they were trying to get into. They were just like, hey, buy this domain, do it. It's like, somebody who has an idea and they just buy the domain, but they're not ready to actually build the site. That's what all these different areas feels like with Facebook.
Well, actually, I'm going to add some more things here. Well, first, give shout outs on the Get Vocal platform. We've got Durham Skyrider. We also have Dre. Hello, Dre. Galen Bingham. It's always difficult for companies to transition from growth to sustaining. First, they have to know. I just lost that because of a comment. First, they have to know they are in transition. The leadership needs are different. Galen, you need to come on here and drop some knowledge bombs. You're just
Yeah,
good.
come on. Why are you just standing and sitting there in the comments? Come on.
Galen gives some good thought process in regards to this kind of stuff. Big time. Let's see here. You Foresight on Periscope says, exactly. You only have to steal data one time. You can copy it over and over after that. Jason on Periscope. Why isn't Facebook not getting in trouble for this?
Hey, please, please. Thank
mark.
you. Thank you.
Also, you Foresight is saying also you have to think about Google and analytics. There's enough data collected out there, but if you want to steal, you only have to steal from just someone's site.
Exactly. And, you know, this is not absolving Google or any other company that have had breaches, including retail businesses like Target and Michaels, etc. You know, everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but many companies have been guilty of not being as diligent with the protection of our data as we could, including us, including ourselves. Nothing is sacred on the net, nothing is safe out there. So the best policy is not to put anything out there that you don't want people to know. And many of us are guilty of putting a whole bunch of things out there. So it lies with us too. It lies with us as well.
Okay. Questions and comments, fast and furious here. Divine Right is asking, Tachi, what do you think about all the groups on Facebook? Do you think that hurts Facebook? Anyone can create a group at any time.
No, I think that is the beauty of platforms like Facebook. The fact that it gives you the autonomy and gives you the opportunity to create spaces where you can connect with people. Remember, before social media was a term, the term was social networking. So that's exactly what these platforms were founded to do. So I think it's great. If you're talking specifically about when abuse becomes a problem or when groups that are not for the public good are a problem, that's a different case. But I think in all, I think it's a great thing to have the opportunity to form connections with like-minded people, providing it's for the good of people.
Here's a comment here. You Foresight is saying, I think that the government has its hands in Facebook's pockets. That's some of this also.
What happened?
No, he's just saying that maybe one of the reasons why the government, maybe the American government, hasn't come hard on Facebook is that there's probably some financial interests between both of them that they don't want Facebook to get hurt.
And see, we've talked about this earlier. Why is it? Because Zuckerberg went to the Hill. A few some ill-prepared senators asked some questions. There were some senators that asked some spot-on questions and some others that clearly you haven't used the internet since it was invented in 1960. There were, some of those who don't know it as a thing. So, but the thing is, really, he walked away with a slap on the wrist. It wasn't, and so of course that leads people to believe, all right, there's some interest there. If you're not really coming down hard, particularly when you found out about Cambridge Analytica, which is huge because that's a foreign entity, and you're not really doing anything, but okay, don't do it again. That's problematic, and that shows that there's something going on there.
It's interesting to see how North American governments have approached Facebook compared to how European governments have approached Facebook and Google.
Absolutely.
Especially this year, was it Google that was heavily fined by the European countries?
Yes, they were fined, as was Zuckerberg was fined as well. However, the fine was about, I want to say it was 500,000 American dollars, which is what Google makes, what Facebook makes every 5 minutes. Seriously, they calculated that. So again, a slap on the wrist. So because of GDPR, Google was fined. Absolutely. Also, there are a lot of companies that just came out. I can't remember all the companies, but there were 7 companies that were fined for violating GDPR. So you can put these rules in place, and it still seems like it's not enough to scare people into not sharing data and into protecting consumers.
So just update here on the Periscope side, Dryer Buzz has joined the conversation.
Hey.
So Ellie is saying from France is saying Germany is in the process of finding Facebook. Apparently, it will be over $1 billion.
Yes, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. So again,
Yeah,
$1 billion for a company that it's a lot, but that's still, I still don't see him being worried. I think the only thing is like the fear of an imminent shutdown, or the fear of an imminent breakup rather than a
right.
shutdown, a breakup.
Well, everything is fine. New underscore MTV says we need ownership of our own media on the Periscope size. And then Charles is asking on Get Vocal, do you think people would be willing to pay for a social network if it didn't share data and it had the best security?
Let me write something down before I said. Okay, I just wanted to spell it out right. Hell no. 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 The problem is, and this is okay, so we're on a platform now. Now remember, there was a previous platform that functioned very much like this, and it was free, right? And then when they shut down, there were other various platforms that functioned like this that attempted to have us pay for them. But that did not work out because the way you start is basically the way you have to finish. So if you start out free and you lure people into your tangled web with free, and then you're like, oh yeah, well, can you pay $1? They won't pay a red cent. You have to start because it's just psychology. It's human nature. If you start with free, unless there is something so much above the free tier that is being, or you started with tiers, that's a different case. That's the only thing. I don't think people will be willing to pay for a platform unless you're using it for, again, business purposes, or yeah, it somehow benefits your business, or you're doing for example, you're a nonprofit and you're doing something that way. Then maybe people will pay for some time, if there's an added benefit. But general public, masses, no, they're not going to pay. And I may sound pessimistic, but knowing people like I know people, they won't pay.
Absolutely. Dryer Buzz makes a great comment. We paid dearly for Pal Talk back in the day.
Yes, I remember Pal Talk.
Dryer Buzz, great take. Strong take.
Yes, absolutely.
Right on it. New underscore MTV. This is not a call-in show. If you want, you can give comments via your Periscope, or you can come over to the Get Vocal platform and watch it live. And if you want, put comments there. But right now, you're good with the Periscope. Wow. Dryer Buzz, thank you for inviting followers. Jay Zinon, thank you for inviting followers. New underscore MTV says,
Oh,
Pal
Jay.
Talk creepy.
All of this is very Aldous Huxley Brave New World-ish. So, It was funny. I was saying the other day that there is really no such thing as science fiction anymore because it all exists in reality.
But here's the question too, Tachi. How can any of this be regulated? It's gone so far forward.
Oh, that is such a great question. And this is the funny thing. This is exactly what we used to talk about in the master's program because, my thing was mass comm. And I had one particular professor, Dr. Hahn, who I absolutely loved, who made this statement. It's almost too late because if they were going to do it, they should have done it at the very inception of the internet. And I always remember him for saying that because, again, it's the same thing like trying to charge people for a social platform. It's too late, boo-boo. It's too late. If you were going to do it, you should have done it at the inception. But I think here's the thing. People not understanding how popular a platform would be, how expensive a platform will be to maintain, that's why they don't charge. So in terms of regulation, I don't think that, okay, the government is woefully unprepared to deal with technology and new technology. They're just not because they don't understand it. There may be individuals who understand within, but they don't, and there's always been this mistrust of science when it comes to government, as well, depending on who's in charge. So, with that, there's this lack of understanding about it from the government. So yeah, no.
And it's interesting how you say that because the American government is not up in the world of technology as much as they should be, but they have so many complaints about what China is doing technology wise, and they don't even really understand technology themselves, it seems, on the whole. I don't want to get political here.
Yeah, no. It's not about, you're right. It's not about getting political, but again, I think sometimes we have our energy in the wrong damn place. Remember when you were in grade school and your teacher said, keep your eyes on your own paper and mind your own business? If you're so busy worrying about somebody else and what they're doing, you cannot develop. And I think often we're so worried about your eyes on Jimmy's paper that meanwhile, Jimmy is excelling. Jimmy is doing what they need to do. So I think we need to keep our eyes on our own paper. And I think that we also need to have this respect for science. Respect for science doesn't mean a disrespect for other things. Often, people equate a respect for science with a disrespect for faith, and it is not. You can have both. They can coexist. And I think that is the impasse that we've come to, that you can only be science or faith, and that you can't have both. Especially those of you that are in the US, you know what I'm talking about now, where there's that sharp dichotomy. I don't know if it's like that in Canada, but there's a really sharp dichotomy, and I'm like, both can coexist and work well.
Nice. Some other comments here. Galen saying, I officially love Dr. Tachi.
Yay!
Curtis said about the companies going the way of the dinosaurs. That's what happened with Fire Talk. On the Periscope end, welcome JNF Enterprises. Jason, is this true what you're saying? The DHS office is still using DOS as their software? Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, Tachi's look, DOS. There's a government office in the United States still using DOS. That's scary.
These are the same people that probably are wearing mullets with feathered hair, because that is straight out of the 1980s. How very dare they? How dare they? Although maybe everything is hackable. I'm trying to put something out there of maybe why that is the case, but I can't defend it. Okay.
Durham Skyrider saying those dumbos don't realize that the early scientists were, quote, men of God, unquote. Dryer Buzz is saying here, watching Congress grill Google and Facebook was scary, so clueless.
And that it's dangerous. I don't think we realize you can't have people knowing more about all of this than you do, and then you're late to the party, and you're sitting at the table trying to figure out what's going on. This is why this has been allowed to happen. Why is there not? And I know there are some committees that deal with these types of things, but I don't think there are any strong committees. Now, granted, I am not a government person. I don't know, but I don't think that there are any strong committee. Okay, FCC. This should fall under FCC and FTC.
Yep.
I don't know what's happening here. Ajit Pai is too busy trying to wrangle us with the rules.
I know what
you know what I'm talking. Why is it not coming to me? Somebody put it in the chat.
Yeah. We'll move on to some other stuff. We spent more than enough time on Facebook. We could spend all the time on Facebook, but that gets exhausting. Yeah. So there's got to be other stuff that you wanted to share with us tonight.
Yeah. So there are a couple of other things. Every list of what was the big thing in 2018 or what were the big things. There were some big things, but then, every list is going to differ. So these are, let me give a disclaimer. These are just some of the things that were notable to me. But of course, everybody knew the Facebook and other data breaches and GDPR. So I wanted to start with this. We would be remiss if we did not mention the whole Time's Up movement. That was very much, and this is still very much a media event. Absolutely.
And you know what? And I just want to interrupt on that, because even up to today, the former head of CBS News.
CBS News, sorry.
Oh, no, CBS, CBS.
CBS, Les Moonves,
And he's not getting his $120 million settlement because the old company did an investigation on him and said that he wasn't telling the truth. And the funny thing is, I was listening to, I'll put his name, Eric Deggans on NPR,
Okay.
their television critic, and he was saying that he is not a fan of CBS because if you look at their programming, there's hardly any women in lead roles in any of their programs. And a lot of the employees are really upset of what's been going on at CBS, that they've not been listened to, etc. And actually, ironically, my coaching mentor just did a webinar with some of CBS executives about this issue.
So this is not anything new. It's just that these people have been caught because people are fed up. So, you know, all of this is not a new domain. This has, and again, it's across fields, across industries, very visible in the entertainment industry and the media industry because these individuals are very high profile and very visible, though this happens across industries. So I don't know why people are acting, well, I shouldn't say they're acting like this is brand new. People are receiving this like it's brand new. And it's, I guess, been kind of low key talked about forever, and it was the accepted norm in Hollywood. And so now people were tired of it and came up with, you know, the hashtag and the movement. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not this really affects any change, what this actually does, because it's starting to slowly change. But let's be clear, the media industries are still largely headed by men.
Well, and it's here, you Foresight, for you two, saying on YouTube, saying, yes, it was weird to see Julie Chen be part of the fallout and have to leave to talk something she started.
Right. But okay. And she was also leaving Big Brother, by the way. And
Yes.
she went from, but she's back. She is back on Big Brother. She's coming back for Big Brother. So here's the thing. I guess they decided one of us has to make money. We both can't be out of a job. So,
exactly.
So that's what happened with that.
But, you know, and I just want to add to the conversation here. And it was interesting. I read a poll that was just put out by NPR today. And the results were quite interesting. And this is indirectly in regards to the Me Too movement, that 52% of the people polled said there is too much political correctness in the United States.
Who are these 52 people that they polled?
You know what? Actually, I'm going to find the link while we're on live here, but that was really interesting in light indirectly of what we're talking about, the whole Me Too thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
The conversation, because yes, it's a big thing this year, but I'm not hearing about it as much. Has the momentum slowed down behind the Me Too movement?
I think now, okay, usually when movements happen, there's that initial stage where there may be protests and the very visible stage of it, but then there's also the behind the scenes, the negotiation, the actual work of it. And not that the protests and the hashtags are not part of the work, but then it's time to actually start with strategy. Okay, what do we want out of this? We can say this all day long, but what is it that we're actually looking for? And then you have the soldiers behind the scenes that are really working to do all of this. Now, there are all sorts of things, criticisms, etc., leveled at the Me Too movement, but that's what I think is happening now. That work is actually, the organizing part of it is actually going to be done, and the organizing of, okay, now what do we do? What is it we want to see? How do we start to shape media so that it's more inclusive and no longer abusive?
So do you see so let me ask a vision. Where do you see the Me Too movement in 2-3 years time?
That's a good question. I don't know where I see it. I would hope, 2 or 3 years time is a short for this. What I would like to see is for it not to be an entity, because that would mean that the issue is solved. But unfortunately, we know that that's probably not going to happen. So, you know, I would like to see it morph into, first of all, being more inclusive, because I still don't feel as a woman of color that Me Too speaks for me too. And this has been a problem when it comes to women's movements across the board, that generally voices of color are not either paid attention to or heard. So I hope that we start to see more voices of women of color involved in it, that the issues that women of color in the industry and various industries, which may be the same but may differ from non-melanated women, are heard. This is what I would hope to see. So more inclusiveness, because it doesn't feel very inclusive right now.
So just catching up on some comments here. Well, welcome to Words with Michelle from Toronto. Long time no chat.
Hey.
Underscore MTV is saying social media is controlled and has been infiltrated by communist China, Russia, North Korea. And the new underscore MTV says we have fallen for the okie dokie.
We're not diligent. Let's be clear. They're right. When we are not diligent, I mean, really, in any other day and time, this type of blatant tomfoolery and rubbish, in terms of what, for example, Facebook has done, would have caused a mass exodus. We're so complacent now that we're like, okay, but I need Facebook. And we really don't. I mean, think about it. How many of us are just like totally willing to 86 Facebook? Many of us probably are, but there are some of us that will still be on it. And so because we still patronize, they don't feel the need to shut down.
Well, have they made themselves indispensable? Getting back to Facebook for a second.
Okay, that's a good question. I don't think they're indispensable. I think we're addicted. Just like, okay, if you're a smoker, you don't need cigarettes, but they're indispensable to you because you're addicted.
Okay. Point well taken. Point well taken. I just want to see what else is going on here in regards to, okay, we're up to, and Galen agrees with what you are saying. And new underscore MTV is saying Tachi is giving real talk. All right. Chetachi and real talk. I'm actually, here we
go. Yay!
Finally, we finally get him. Mr. Bingham, please hope your camera's on. Okay.
Oh,
there we go.
There we go. Hey.
How are you?
Great. I'm just saying, okay, so Dr. Vibe, you and I go back a long way, but this lady here, oh my gosh.
You know what you do? You know what you do? You need to have her as a co-facilitator on your next event.
Clearly.
I would love to.
I'm being very serious because some of your executives need that media lens.
Absolutely. Yeah, so very interesting. I mean, just listening to you guys talk about Facebook and just all the other trends with all of these movements, and to me it just appears that we are moving from, particularly here in the United States, probably in Canada and around the world, but it just seems like we're moving from the ideals of what the country used to stand for and that we used to aspire to this is who we really are. As ugly as it is, we are a country that requires a Me Too movement. We are a country that requires Black people to say Black Lives Matter. That's who we are. We are a country that would elect a Donald Trump. I mean, we're moving from the ideals of who we say we are to this is who we really are, and perhaps that's happening around the world as well. But that's just kind of my take on pop culture. And
it's a good take. I want to ask you, as a person who is an executive, what role, good or bad, do you feel media is playing in what you just shared? Are they doing their job? Are they being more political than more informational?
Was that to Dr. Tachi?
Is that me or for
you first and then to Dr. Tachi?
Yeah.
I think the media is doing both, right? I think that, I mean, let's face it, the big part of the media is telling you what you need to hear in order for them to sell, right? Everyone's selling, and they're going to tell you I think the phrase used to be, if it bleeds, it leads, or something like that. Right. So they're going to give you what they think you want to hear in order for you to give them their eyeball, give them your eyeballs. And so I think it's a little bit of both. So I don't know that I fault them. If anything, and I heard Tachi say this earlier, if anything, we have to take ownership, because very often we go through life on autopilot and we're not thinking about what we're thinking about. And I think that's what's creating this addiction to Facebook. I just, even me personally, I wasn't even thinking about it until I hear this conversation. And now I'm starting to evaluate, hey, wait a second. Yeah, I mean, is there a need for me to have this platform that I check every day? And I can justify it and I can rationalize and say I'm a business owner and it's a way for me to business. But there are other ways to advertise my business. So.
Absolutely. We can't hear you, Dr. Vibe. Oh. Okay, so something happened, so we're going to keep it going. You and I will keep it going until Dr. Vibe gets back. So what is it that you do? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I am a leadership strategist. So I help leaders conquer their most important goals or solve their biggest problems. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm an author. But more important, whenever a leader has a big goal that they've got to overcome, because if they solve this problem, it could mean $5 million to their bottom line. Usually they're so close to it that they would benefit from having an outside voice come in and just help them see things differently. Same things with big problems. Usually, if you've got a big problem, there's urgency there. And one of the things that urgency will create is it will narrow your focus, right? And so very obvious things that you would ordinarily see, you don't. And that's when I come in and try to provide a perspective on what they can do to solve their problem or achieve their biggest goal.
Very cool. Very cool. And what role does social media and media in general have in what you do? How do you use it?
Yeah, well, I'm a business owner as well. So I own a retail business, and I use it more for advertising and promoting the things that I'm doing, and sharing thoughts on personal excellence, and more of an advertising vehicle.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, part of it is, one of the comments I shared earlier, if you're not the client, then you're the product. And
yes,
it's so easy to lose sight on the fact that I'm sharing things in my attempt to want to connect with, friends from the 6th grade, right? And I'm sharing things that maybe I shouldn't, I wouldn't share if I were thinking about what I was doing.
Absolutely. And I think that we're all very innocent in wanting to do this. And, we share, there's that whole norm of reciprocity. So somebody shares and we share back. And plus, we have sometimes we have this need to show that, as the song says, we're living our best life. Okay. And so, it's putting that out there, and in some cases it's a pretense of what we're doing. But this is the first time in history that we, as regular everyday people, have been listened to and have the opportunity to be listened to in media. That's power. And it's also one of the faults of that anybody can say anything. So yeah, very, very poignant. Hey, Dr. Vibe, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to get Galen. So what you've heard about what's going on at Facebook, you being a leadership strategist, what advice would you give them?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know that I know the full scope of everything that they're embroiled with. I do know that honesty is usually the best policy. So whatever it is that they're embroiled with, they need to have a plan. They need to have a group of people that are not only working on the narrative from a marketing standpoint, but it has to be laced with the truth, because people like Dr. Tachi, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. You can sniff out. You can sniff out if they're lying to you, right? Because this is a matter of trust now. Do I feel comfortable? Do I feel like you're going to protect the information that I put on your system?
Right.
And if I don't feel like you're trustworthy, then either I'm going to leave, or it's not going to be as robust as you have enjoyed it to be in the past.
Exactly. Exactly.
I just want to continue the next conversation here. You foresight for you too, asking Tachi, what about the slip ups at Apple?
Oh, in terms of
Uh,
what do you mean, you foresight? You mean what specifically do you mean in terms of
Apple this year?
So they throttled battery life on older iPhones, which forced you to, like, in a sense, upgrade if you wanted to do that. And that, of course, they apologized for that and gave some weak excuse as to why they did that. We know exactly why you did that, because you want us to buy your new iPhones. And let's be honest, it's the growth of these types of things, of iPhones. Even though people are still buying them in droves, there are still these people that will line up for the $1,700 iPhone. Don't laugh, because that's probably coming. The growth has slowed of iPhone. And so how do you do these things? So you do things like they do. You make people buy all these ridiculous dongles, take away the headphone jack. You make your dongles so they don't last, so that I have to keep, because your machines and things will last, but the actual connections and the power don't. So I'm not purporting that this is what they do, but it feels as if they do, in my opinion. So I mean, if you're talking about that, you foresight, so that's one thing that they did. They throttled the power. My thing is, like, we're already committed to you. We're already addicted to you, Apple. So you don't have to run game for us to buy things. There are still idiots who will stand and buy the newest iPhone for $1,700. You don't even have to advertise for that to happen. So you don't have to run game in order to, and I think this is what companies, and probably Galen, you can attest to this. You don't have to run game for us to be loyal if you have a good product.
Yeah, it's about the integrity of the brand promise, right? And that's literally what you're talking about. And I've gone through that. And so the entire time that I was experiencing that as a consumer, this entire time I'm thinking there's something wrong with me. And then come to find out, 4 people in this store at the exact same time are saying the exact same thing that I'm saying as far as the problem. And so now I'm starting to question the integrity of the brand, the integrity of the company. And to your point, there's no need to do that. You can just deliver against your brand promise, because people who are Apple people, they dare not even look at any other company. They are devoted. Yes. It's almost like, there was a time that if in the US, if you identified as flying Southwest Airlines, you didn't even look at, there's like a devotion to brands who would take care of them. And right now, I think a lot of companies might be compromising that trust for the sake of quarterly earning, which is something that I'm always concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Do you have a next subject, Tachi, or I can bring one in if you want?
So go ahead, and I'll add in as we're talking. Yeah, I have some, but go ahead.
Yeah, before Tachi and I went live, I think one of the interesting things that happened in tech was the whole introduction of Amazon stores where you didn't have to check out. It was fully digital. And Amazon just keeps on moving. They just keep on moving. They just keep on going. They keep on growing. And I think their brand, talk about a behemoth. If we think Facebook is a behemoth, what about on the retail end, Amazon being a behemoth and collecting data?
Exactly. But here's the difference. Amazon is an entity that actually fills a need, that actually fills a specific need. There are people that completely run businesses on Amazon, right? And for them, it's a huge moneymaker. I always say that if it's not on Amazon or Alibaba, it doesn't exist. Basically, so we're talking about retail, which is huge, and we're talking about Amazon providing a whole lot of vendors that deal with products that we actually need. So whereas Facebook, they can close tomorrow and people would be like, oh, that's interesting, but bye, and they forget about it a little while longer. Amazon would be a little bit bigger, and because this is also the thing, though there were problems in terms of pay, etc., and now they're trying to correct it, Amazon also employs an awful lot of people. So you're talking about them employing more people than Facebook does. So again, yeah, some people would lose their jobs at Facebook, etc., but those are, very mostly high-level jobs at Facebook. When you talk about most of the people that work at Amazon are probably working in fulfillment centers, and they need those jobs. So now you're talking about messing with people's livelihoods there. So there's a little bit of a difference.
But I guess, and also one of the stories of the year was in the tech area was a whole search for the second Amazon location, the H2, and finally it being awarded to, I know New York was one of the areas.
Was
it Virginia, the other?
Yeah, the DMV area. Yeah. So New York and Virginia. So right outside New York City. Well, not in New York City, in Queens. So Queens was one, and then in Northern Virginia. I want to say Springfield. I don't know why, but yeah, in Northern Virginia. So there have been some positives and negatives with that one as well.
Galen, and I'm keeping you in the conversation because you can bring in the leadership perspective. When you look at all these tech companies and what they're going on with, their leadership style, their management style, what takes do you get? And before you start, one other thing, I just want to say a big shout out to Encyclopedia Brown. Leah, the world traveler, is with us. So go ahead, Galen.
Yeah, so a comment that I made earlier on the chat line was just, there are 4 phases that every company goes through, right? The first phase is usually where the entrepreneur gets in and it's a startup and they're just trying to find their thing and get it off the ground. From a technology standpoint, usually it's one brilliant engineer who has this crazy idea and can put some wiring around it. And so that requires a certain kind of innovation, certain kind of leadership. But then you start getting to this growth where you're actually scaling, you're actually building a company, you're actually hiring people and trying to get the wiring right. And that requires a different kind of leadership. And then you go to sustaining, where you've got an organization. Now you're trying to do the things, if you're going to go public, it's the quarterly earnings, it's the ongoing customer satisfaction, that kind of thing. And so it's just really important that technology companies, because it's so easy to start a technology company if you're smart and you've got a great idea, you can start a company. But as you grow, it's going to be important that they have the kind of foresight to know that they're growing and know that they need a different kind of leadership than maybe they needed when they first opened their doors. And that's the same with every company. You hear so many times of, Sally Mae, who bakes a great pound cake, wants to open a bakery, and she does well in the beginning, and then before long she's out of business because she didn't know how to run a business. She knew how to bake a cake. And that could be the problem with engineers.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Galen. Tachi, I want to go back and go into another subject and talk about the whole world. Oh, Galen has left us. Okay. That was quick. It was okay. Hey, there is room for people to jump on here. Yeah. I want to talk about the world of live streaming, especially from the desktop, of the world of Netflix. What's been going on with Netflix? Obviously, during the year, they dropped some programs.
Oh, yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
The whole restructuring offering of it.
Yeah, so Netflix is at this point now where they can drop remember before nothing was dropped by them, but now they're at this point where they can decide, oh, we want this or we don't want this. There is no rhyme or reason. You know, Netflix does not reveal their analytics or their metrics of who watches what and how many they have. They don't do that, but they're at this point now, I guess, where they feel comfortable enough getting rid of things. I have some things about that. So I think that, okay, they have spent, or they are spending 13 billion on content, okay, on new content. I don't know that that's all original content, but they're beefing up their original content. In fact, recently, the head of content acquisition, I believe is his title at Netflix, was asked about streaming. And, you know, for example, Disney is coming up with their streaming platform. Warner Brothers is coming up with their streaming platform. And he's basically like, we ain't scared, as they would say. They are not worried at all. This was why they put so much energy into building their original content base, because they knew that eventually people were going to come for them in terms of this. Netflix is number one in terms of streaming. And they know that when you're number one, there are always people trying to topple you, right? You know, coming right behind them is the Hulus and the Amazon Prime videos of the world. So they're trying to maintain that, but they did, in their opinion, and my opinion too, a good thing by investing in original programming early, because then they are not beholden to constantly purchase programming from other people. So they're trying to hold this, and this is important, especially because you can watch all of the Marvel movies on Netflix. You can also watch the Star Wars trilogy on Netflix. Who owns both of those? Disney. Excuse me, I have like little allergy thing going on. So Disney owns both of them. If they had their own streaming platform, do we not think that at any point they could say, oh, well, we're just going to pull our entire library? You know, once whatever agreement is up, they could decide that they could pull their entire library from Netflix. So I think Netflix understands this, and they're trying to build content that is equally as engaging and that will, you know, help them keep their market share.
I'm just taking a look here on the YouTube side. U4Sight for YouTube said Netflix definitely wants to be the next great superpower when it comes to providing content.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you feel their future is bright?
Oh yeah, it looks bright, but bright is only as much as you stay diligent. Snapchat thought their future was bright too, and then they slept on their bright laurels, and here comes Facebook copying everything they do. So, you know, the brightness of your future is only as woke as you stay, as diligent as you stay. There could be today they're on top, and you know, they're starting far ahead of a lot of other people. You know, even remember Blockbuster back in the day tried to do the same thing with DVDs, okay, that they were doing, but they were too late. So I think the streaming game is a little bit different than the DVD game, and it could be anybody's game. So they still have to stay diligent, though their future seems bright.
I'd like to thank Divine Right for sharing this on her Twitter platform and sharing it with all her viewers. Much thanks, much appreciated. One of the conversations we always have, and it's unfortunately doesn't change that much year over year, is the lack of diversity of the content providers on all these platforms and also in the tech industry. Was there any, in your opinion, forward progress on this subject in 2018?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we start to see a lot of tiny moves towards diversity. Absolutely. So here, okay, in terms of media, right? Are you talking about tech or media or all?
I think both, because I think it's right now. I think it's the same situation in both, but you may differ. You may bring, and I know you may bring some added value and perspective on that I do not know as well as you do, because you're more in that space than both those spaces, or knowledge of those spaces, than I am.
Okay, so there are a couple of different things. Tech, not as much. when we talk about diversity, I think I'd like to think we're talking about all types of diversity, not just racial and ethnic, but diversity of thought, diversity in gender, diversity in sexual orientation, etc. So I think there's much more headway to be made, and that's evidenced by all these little memos that are leaking from Facebook, etc. And that's, by the way, why Facebook is calling for the for the boycott of Facebook, because of that memo that leaked that had, I guess, racial bias overtones to it. So that's one thing. Ask me the question again, because there's something I wanted to bring up, and it's
okay. No, I'm just saying that one of the conversation topics we bring up on a regular basis, especially in the year end, is the whole area of lack of diversity.
Diversity, okay.
In the media tech space.
Right, media tech. So tech space, not as well. I lost my train of thought there for a minute. I was like, wait a minute. Okay. So yeah, the tech space, not as much. There's much more that needs to be done. And I think here's the thing. It's not a simple answer, because not only do they need to do a better job of attracting people of diverse backgrounds into tech, we need to do a better job of educating the future workforce for tech if we want it to be diverse. I happen to be a member of Delta Sigma Theta, and we have a thing for young girls called the Dr. Betty Shabazz Delta Academy, and that's for girls to get girls interested in STEM, right? So it's to foster that. So there are programs that are trying to do that, but that needs to be something that's done on a school level. We can't keep relying on after school programs and outside programs to do that when it bloody well should be in the curriculum. So if you're not educating girls, or interesting thing, there was I was watching Cheddar the other day, the station, the network, and there was, I can't remember which entity it was, but they are rebooting a science show it will come to me. Rebooting a science show that kids really love. It was from the 90s, and they're rebooting it. So it's the same producers that are on board. And a teacher wrote and said, could you please create a show that has, a young woman or young girl that's interested in science or doing that, because they talked to this one girl who was like really interested in science, then it just waned off. And why? Because she said science was for boys. So that's problematic. If that's the way of thinking, and up until a certain point in grade school, you love science, you're cool with science, and then it just drops off, that means that we need to change the conversation of who is allowed to be in science, or who gets to be in science. And that also comes with them seeing examples of themselves. You can't be what you don't see. So it's not just about at the top level. It's also on the elementary school level. It's on the high school level. It's on the college level. It's before they get to the point where they're actually working at these companies, or are at the age to work at these companies.
More people jumped in to catch a watch on the Get Vocal side. Greetings, Michael. Hope you are fine. On the Periscope side, Enlighten Up has joined in, and they have invited their followers. Also, Cran Wise has jumped in.
Hey.
Cran Wise says, yes, get them addicted young. Also joining in on the Get Vocal platform, Luke. Welcome, everybody. We are doing a wrap up of the year in media, tech, and pop culture. We're not even really started. We're just bouncing around right now. We haven't even really gone that deep. What is good about media in 2018 as it comes to an end? What do you feel what are they doing right, and what are they not doing right? And also the same thing, what is tech doing right, and what is tech not doing right?
Oh, that's a great question. So media, what is media doing right? And I don't know that this is all of media, but the fact that there is now a choice. One of the things on my list that was big in 2018 was cord cutting. And this always happens when there is a new thought process or new platform. The original folks in the space kind of laugh at, oh, Netflix, what are they going to do? Cord cutting, that won't hurt us. Yeah, it is. It's putting a major dent in the bottom lines, or if even if not a major dent, it is putting a dent in the bottom lines of these cable companies. So people are fed up with paying $200 a month for channels that just repeat things back to back to back over and over, whereas you can cut the cord and still get great entertainment for cheaper, as long as you don't get caught up in adding all these other things. So I think that's something that media is doing right. You wanted to know what they're doing wrong? No, we've already talked about that. So
okay. Actually, just before you go ahead further, you for Sight 4U2 says we have to tell young men and women to utilize a phone may make you popular, but being able to make a phone yourself will make you rich.
Exactly. Teaching to fish rather than buying a fish. We're talking about the longevity. Absolutely.
So let's flip over to what tech is doing right, and what opportunities are they missing out on right now?
Ooh, I think there's a lot further that tech could go. I think what I'm liking is this foray of really trying to strengthen the medical field. I think that the future of tech is in a lot of things, but I think sometimes we think about it in an entertainment sense only, and we need to start to think about it in terms of its utility to humanity. And what I'm liking that I'm seeing is there are a lot of inroads being made in medical technology, and even the use of distance technology to do surgery, etc. VR in terms of those types of things. So I'd like to see them continue on that trajectory of improving medical technology. So that's one thing that they're getting right. What they need to do, the problem is, technology can be expensive and is prohibitive for a lot of people. Even let's think about it. Simple technologies like what is it? The 3D sonogram. I think that's what it's called. Is sonogram 3D sonogram? Yes. So not everybody can get access to it. Even simple things like, okay, having a mammogram, but then a mammogram, there's another one that you can get that is actually more accurate. But again, it's with whether or not you can pay for it. So I'm loving that they have advances in medical technology, but if people can't afford it except for a few, it's for naught. It's nonsense. It's not helping humanity. It's helping a few humans. Oh, Dr. Vibe, you're frozen.
Welcome, Steph. Welcome, Kinte is back, and we got some great people here on the Get Vocal side. So that you bring up another subject in regards to affordability or accessibility. Oh, actually, Curtis has a question. How do we know girls and boys are not dealing with certain behaviors and mindsets that coexist before they enter the education space?
They are.
Big question. Okay.
They absolutely are. And if you're talking about, so let's talk about particular communities, communities of underrepresented people, for example, there are already stereotypes. There are already roadblocks that exist that prohibit them from thinking forward in terms of this is something I could do and something I could be. Let's think about it, especially in, for example, some communities of color. It is not cool if you're a male to exhibit traits of intelligence. That's not something you want to do. Then you're told that you're acting a certain way, which I can't stand. Also, in some of these communities, you have, and it's not just perpetuated by media, it's also perpetuated by the community, that the only way out of particular predicaments is through sports. There's nothing wrong with that. But that to be a sports star is probably one of you out of how many million that's going to happen to, but they still see it as a viable way. And this is why you have parents that will, push kids into football and things like that. Nothing wrong with playing football, but the likelihood of them succeeding to the point of it being a viable profession for them are very unlikely. And so I'm not trying to squash dreams. It is what it is. So yes, you're absolutely right, Curtis. There are preconceived notions and things that certain communities communities are dealing with that prevent them from seeing that. But that's where we all come in. And sorry, to whom much is given, much is required. For those of us that have that knowledge, it is our duty, whether you like it or not, to make sure that that knowledge is passed on to the people, to the generations that need it. Definitely. Sorry. It is if you don't want to do it, it's too bad. That is your that is your lot on earth. You have to do it.
Excellent. And your producer Curtis is in full agreement with you. Just want to shout out to Justin for stopping by on the Get Vocal platform. Also, thank you, Gabe, for stopping by on the Get Vocal platform. I know you may have some other things you want to chat about, so every once in a while I want to interrupt your groove, but what else do you have on your hit list?
So, I mean, you're touching on all the things. So we talked about Facebook and social platforms and those debacles. We talked about the concept of cord cut, time's up. We talked about cord cutting, and you brought that up. And so that's great. Let's talk. You talked about live streaming, but we talked about streaming from the standpoint of like Netflix of streaming content, not about things like this and live streaming. And I'm starting to see, even though it feels like there's not a lot of emphasis, I'm starting to see increased interest and increased emphasis in the live streaming realm. And one of the people we love to hate, go ahead.
But all of a sudden,
it's not all of a sudden. I think that people did not know what to do with it. People don't understand live streaming. They don't know what to do with it and how to monetize it. And we don't do a damn thing unless money is involved and somehow money can be made. Let's be clear. And if you don't understand how it works and how you can make money off of it, you're not going to do it. But I think there is a growing little buzz of a renewed interest in live streaming again. I think part of that came with, even though Facebook Watch is not doing as well as they hoped, there are some programs that are doing phenomenally well, like the Red Table Talks, if anybody has ever watched that, with Jada Pinkett Smith and her daughter Willow Smith and her mother. I can never remember her mother's name, but anyway. And that type of thing. So I think there's a renewed interest in that type of thing because of entities like Facebook Watch, meaning that there are platforms that have given legitimacy to it, and it's not just us getting on and talking, if that makes any sense. So there's a renewed interest in it.
Okay. New underscore MTV says, yes, so many people don't get it, and it starts with owning your own live streaming app. People don't just get it. He says plantation mindset's working for the plantation mindset.
Yeah. There
you go. I absolutely agree on that. Traditional banks are very nice. I don't know what the fintech is, but do you know about
financial technology?
Okay. Hey, you're good. You're way up on this thing. Katya, I'm not going to keep you on for too much longer because I can tell the allergies are getting the best of you.
I'm okay. I'm good.
All right. Okay. I just want to make sure that you're doing okay.
I'm okay.
Yeah, in the live. So do you feel that, are we going into the next generation when it comes to live streaming? Because we had the earlier days with your other platforms. We won't name any of them, but now it seems that people are getting it. Why are people getting it now?
I think that there's improved technology and improved capacity to do things. Where I see this starting to take off a little bit more, though the barrier to entry is a little bit high, is with the introduction of 5G. This Friday, AT&T is officially launching 5G in a handful of cities, including obscure places like Waco, Texas, Jacksonville, Florida, etc. So with the proliferation of a 5G network, and then once people get 5G devices, I think we'll be able to see a lot more with live streaming, from your phone, without having to really use outside extra things if you don't want to, because it will be faster.
Oh, let's see. What's up, Rico 2? Askia Jones, good to have you here.
Hey, Askia.
5G. I've heard different reports in regards to the whole area of privacy issues with 5G. Have you heard anything about that?
I don't know a whole lot of the problems with privacy issues. No, maybe somebody else does, but I don't know a whole lot about that.
Okay, so new_MTV says, can you explain in detail what 5G is? Because people don't know.
Yeah. So what we're on now is 4G. So that's basically dealing with the system. So if you want a technological breakdown of it, you won't get it from me because I'm not like a technological problem, a tech person, but not a technological person. So basically, that is the system of reception that we have for cellular. Remember, we had 2G, we had 3G, and with each, it improves. The infrastructure has to be improved, and they up it, and that also means that you up the phone. So you have to have a device that is enabled for this new system, for this faster system. Could all of this have existed before? Yes, absolutely. But the infrastructure wasn't there to do that. So if they, in a nutshell, 5G is a faster cellular system than what we have now at 3 and 4G.
Okay, so Steph is saying it's the speed at which data is transferred, and it deals with the infrastructure.
Right, so it deals with the infrastructure. So, and it is speed, absolutely.
Yeah, and welcome Roger Dundas from buyblacks.com, Canada's #1 Black Canadian online magazine and longtime friend of mine. Thank you for jumping in. Does this mean that we're going to have to buy new phones if we want 5G?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, unless your phone is already enabled for that and can receive that, then yes, you will have to if you want 5G. But what AT&T is offering on Friday is you're only going to be able to pick it up basically with a hotspot, and for right now, and that hotspot from AT&T is $499 upfront. Then
how much?
$499, $500. Call it $500. Then there is an additional monthly cost of $70 for 15 gigs. Keep your 5G. I'm just fine with my 4G. I'm good. I'm good.
New_MTV says there is no infrastructure in place. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with I keep on hearing about the 5G.
The infrastructure is widely known. The infrastructure is not in place, which is why AT&T, everybody is working on their 5G strategy right now. AT&T is launching Friday. AT&T is only launching in a few cities because there's not wide infrastructure for 5G. Absolutely not. But in certain cities, you should see on your network in certain places, depending on where you are, you should see your router with the option with the 5G after it, which means that they're starting to work on that infrastructure.
Interesting. New_MTV is saying that's why there's a fight going on with Huawei in China.
Yes.
Huawei. Sorry.
I think they said Huawei, right? Yeah. Huawei. I think so.
Idea.
I think so.
But so that is something I guess we should be looking for in 2019. The more rollout of 5G?
Yeah, absolutely. AT&T was the first. They promised they were going to roll out by the end of 2018. They just made it with this rollout on Friday. So that everybody else is 2019. At this point, I'm just going to say this: for me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to get excited about it because it's not wide. It's not, I'm not a huge fan of the first generation of anything because there are always bugs with the first generation of anything. So my advice is wait. You don't have to, unless there's some marked reason that you need to go to 5G. I don't know what it will offer at this point that your 4G cannot do. Obviously, it will be faster. Yes, it will be faster. But is it worth $500 plus another $70 a month? That's with AT&T. I don't know what the plans are going to be with the other, like T-Mobile, etc. But is that worth it? Because that's tacking on an extra $70 to whatever you're already doing.
Well, I'm going to go back a little because I have to catch up on some comments. Let's see. Divine Right, when talking about the health issues in regards to technologies, he says 3D mammogram, but not all insurance companies cover it.
Right.
But I meant not all insurance companies cover 3D mammograms, or copay can be high depending on your insurance.
Right.
Let's see. You Foresight saying, he says 5G, here we go again. Basically, in a nutshell, 5G is faster than 4G. You lost me at $500.
Exactly. I lost myself at $500.
Yeah, that's just really, really out of bounds. And Luke is saying, now I can go over my data limit in a minute. Hooray!
Exactly. Exactly. For me, it's not worth it.
Gabe is saying, when 5G comes, say goodbye to your local cable company.
Interesting. Interesting indeed.
Well, and I think another area in the world of media, I think we can talk a little bit about. A number of years ago, the big hot word in media was convergence.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
And it seemed to die down for a while. Hey, what's up, Bobby? Thanks for jumping in. But now it seems that it's coming again with all companies eating each other, or the bigger companies eating up the smaller companies again.
So, okay, when I teach, for those of you that don't know, I'm a media professor. So when I teach this, I teach that there are two definitions of convergence. The first definition of convergence is older forms of media that are reinvented on newer forms of media. So very simply, the fact that you can read a book on your Kindle and your iPad, that's convergence. So the second definition of convergence comes with media companies eating each other up, basically. There are a handful of companies that own all the media in the US. So, but that's always been the way. You know, you've had smaller companies that get bought out or eaten up and acquired by larger companies. That's always been the way, which is why for my students, they always ask, oh, can I use the text from last year if you want old information? Because I can tell you what's not in there already. So every 6 months, there are major changes in this industry. And, you know, you really have to pay attention. I pay attention because I teach this, so I have to know.
And also, too, in regards to that, the fight over the digital space, because I guess whoever has the distribution network is going to be the ones that really have the biggest money.
Another student anecdote. I had students when I used to be a professor at Morgan State University. A lot of them that were in communication were looking to do music. So their big thing was like, oh yeah, I'm going to start a record label. I already have some people that get on board. I said, that's nice, but where are you going to sell your stuff? The power in music is in distribution, not necessarily in how many labels you have. And that's in every media industry. The power is in distribution. So we can all have programs all day long, but the power is in the distribution of it.
So going on that point, when we look at especially the media industry, is it still, like, not only in the media industry, but the live streaming industry, we chat about this a lot, how it seems to be just a small group of people that are getting the shine when it comes to live streaming, when it comes to media access. You know, we have platforms like the Get Vocals, etc. But at the end of the day, it always seems just a small group of individuals are getting that opportunity to move, to get access to the next level.
Well, this is what happens when you have tunnel vision at the decision-making table. When you don't have a well-rounded, reflected board making the decisions of who gets in, and you know, they act as gatekeepers. You have the same 10 people all the time, sometimes on every platform, dominating the platform, whether or not they're talented. And I'm not trying to argue anybody's talent, but you know, you're hitting a spot for me, because it incenses me when I see there is some really good talent on live stream, fantastic talent, but it often gets beat out, you know, with really good, like the Dr. Vibe show, but it often gets overshadowed by people that are doing other things. I'll put it that sense. rather than how I want to say it.
It just seems the same old, just a different platform.
Exactly. So, but again, I think the diversity piece is interesting there. And again, I want to let people know diversity and inclusion is not just talking about race and ethnicity. It's a diversity in terms of different ideas. So, it does include race and ethnicity, but that's not the only thing. So if there are only people that are at the decision-making table that only care about having this type of person sing or this type of song being sung or whatever, despite the fact, and you can see this is reflected in, let's take, I'm going to say the platform, let's take Periscope, for example. There's no rhyme or reason often with who gets featured on Periscope. And there are some people that are doing amazing things and they never get featured, yet they're the same, people that get featured all the time. Well, of course, if you are the owner of the platform, you get to decide who is worthy. But a better way to do that is to be inclusive of your board of decision makers of, hey, let's look at this. Let's look at new talent. Let's do this to be truly inclusive, because let me tell you, that inclusivity sells. Hollywood found that out when Black Panther did so well. Just saying.
Yeah. Yes, very true. Very true. Anyone wanting to jump in? I see a lot of good comments going on.
Yeah, why are you all staying in the
don't say, okay, so Steph, media in America has always been narrow-minded, but now these antiques on these boards are trying to catch up with the social media stars. I agree with that to a certain extent, but it seems that the social media stars seem to be, let me just say, they all look the same.
They do all look the same, and they often, here's the thing. I am all for getting on a platform and working it and making it your own, monetizing it, being something different than linear media. I am all for that. However, at some point, you have to operate within the scope of sense, and you have to care enough about your craft to do it well. Everybody may not agree with that, but that's what I feel. For example, there are people who have been doing things, for example, news for donkey's years who, may not get as much shine on a social platform as a social media influencer who gets on and does the same thing. So there may be a lot of tension there or whatever. I'm not hating on the social media person or that influencer getting on and doing the same thing. What I will hate on about you is not taking the craft seriously. And now, now that I'm doing this, I need to really know how to deliver news properly. I need to know how to do this. And delivering news properly doesn't look one way. But my bottom line is that if you're going to do this, respect your audience enough to do things in a way that brings shine to what you're doing, as opposed to, I'm just doing this because I want to do it. And there's too much of that now.
But so this leads into another conversation piece.
Yeah.
Is that because the media will say that's what the public wants, or there's the other end saying the media is driving this into the public's minds? What do you think it is, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. So there is a theory called the agenda setting function of the media. And look who's here. Let me finish. So wow. Wow.
You better stop. Let him go.
Go ahead, Askia.
We stop.
No,
we stop. It's time.
No. I've been enjoying it. I was actually in the gym listening to you and Tachi through YouTube. And so when I got home, I just logged into Get Vocal. Great conversations. I mean, I was listening to everything from the streaming services, the fintech. But I want to chime in because I had an opportunity to speak to a group of freshmen at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida, and it was the freshmen that were graduating into their sophomore year, and they gave me a topic. They asked me to talk about the elevator pitch, like build your elevator pitch, and I kind of spinned it. But to make a long story short, at the end of the talk, a young guy came up to me and he was like, man, I really enjoyed the talk. And so we were talking and he was like, and so I asked him, I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to be an influencer. And that's why I jumped in, because when you all were talking about influencers. And I asked him, I said, well, why do you want to influence people? And what do you want to influence people to do? And he couldn't answer the question. He just paused. And I sat there and stared at him. And all of a sudden, he had no idea why he wanted to be an influencer. And the reason why that's important is because when we talk about the age we're in right now, we're in the digital revolution, which is similar to the industrial revolution. And just as the industrial revolution was fueled by gas and oil, the digital revolution is fueled by content. And when Tachi touched on the importance of distribution, if anybody wants to enter a space where they can think about it, there's about 1 million different channels out right now. You can't even watch TV anymore. That's not even including the things online. I don't even understand. I'm not interested in it, but anybody that really wants to build a business, business and if you could get 1% of 1% of 1% of that market, you can make an absolute killing. Because right now everything is about content. And the reason why everything is about content, everything is about intellectual properties. So what I tell my kids now is, if you want to build a business, develop an IP, build something that can be acquired, build something that has some type of intrinsic value where Netflix might say, oh my gosh, you want to do a movie. It could be a comic book. You might come up with a comic book idea. And all of a sudden, Netflix, like, we want to do a movie on that. Or CBS or some station want to do a TV show on that. I think that the way we're moving now, we have all these people that want to be influencers. And the problem that I see with that is that the media advertising agencies, and I used to own my own boutique agency, so I've been in this space for so long. They are willing to give Kim Kardashian $300,000-$400,000 to promote some lotion or promote a hair product, because what people don't realize is you're no longer just a brand. You are you're a media outlet. Like, if you have a lot of followers on social media, then you're a broadcast company now. If people don't understand that, and the more followers you have, the more people you're broadcasting to, the more people you're communicating to. And brand companies, I'm telling you, product companies recognize that. And they're willing to pay people to promote things because it's a fraction of what they would spend on a commercial. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. But the problem, though, is the people that want to be influencers, they don't realize that all they're really doing is they're only becoming a part of this cycle of just distributing, as you said, Tachi, distributing these products. But they're doing it in a cost-efficient way where now they don't have to spend this money on a commercial on CBS, or commercial on some major network, commercial on during the Super Bowl. If they know that you have 2 million followers, 3 million followers, 100,000 followers, they're willing to bet on you that you have the ability to reach enough people to sell their product. So I would say distribution, because of the content industry that we're in, it's only, look, that's why you talked about 5G. That's why it's only going to get bigger. They're already talking about 6G already. Then you're going to have 7G. Why is that important? Because we're streaming content. We're streaming video. We're streaming files. We're going to be at 10G probably before 2020. You know what I'm saying? So the content, we're going to stay in this content revolution now, because we're here to stay. Because this is how because the problem is we have more users and more consumers than we have producers or product builders. Yeah. And as long as we continue to have more users than builders or producers, then we're going to keep putting out this content, because people are going to be fixed on it, because these are now our TVs. This is our television now. Right. We don't watch TV anymore. We use our iPads, we use our TV. So I just want to add to that. That is that's where we are. And I get fascinated by it, because when I talk to young kids, I'm telling them all the different things. You're talking about technology has equaled the playing field for us. I don't think people understand that. Technology has equaled the playing field. If you want reparations, this is the closest we're gonna get. I'm for real, because this is the only time now where you can go online, you can have an idea. Think about it. At 5 o'clock in the evening, you could be driving home, have an idea, and you could get to the house, register a domain, go to Shopify, some other place, build your site, upload some products, and literally be in business before midnight. Where else could you have done that? True. Technology has completely alleviated brick and mortar operations. That's why Amazon is crushing businesses like crazy. Yep. That's why we don't have any record stores anymore. Apple has done that. So the brick and mortar concept is gone. So now when we used to talk about the digital divide, we're getting to the point where those lines are blurring so much. There is absolutely no excuse not to have a business.
Rico, fire. Right. Before you move on, Tachi, I just want to shout out Tachi, the #1 troublemaker is on Periscope.
Oh.
Yes. #1 troublemaker.
She's on Periscope?
Yes, I see that she joined. And I'll just read about what So Steph has said, and also Gabe, and then I'll let you come back. So Steph says, them beauty girls on YouTube are making so much money from brand deals. They are being paid $75,000 for a single dedicated video for a product, a fraction of what it costs to make a commercial, but exponential for an individual influencer. And Gabe is saying there's going to be oversaturation. Now, Tachi?
Let me add to that. Gabe is right, but there's already oversaturation. But there's oversaturation in everything. There's oversaturation in microphones. There's oversaturation in books. There's oversaturation in, so there's always going to be oversaturation. It's the ability to be able to somehow ingratiate yourself within the right distribution channel, so that now you're not the one you're not the content, or you're not the group of people that's being capitulated or consolidated, where now you're the ones that's rising up above that saturation. So he's absolutely right. But I'm gonna say we're already there. The saturation exists because that's what tech does. Tech trumps tech. Facebook trump MySpace, right? Google trump Yahoo. Tech trumps itself. So as long as you can, that's the beauty of technology. So the oversaturation has to happen. That's why you have to build infrastructure. You have to build infrastructure. Okay, I'm gonna close on this. This is one of the things I teach when I work with the little kid, when I work with youth.
You know you're gonna come back and go more in deep on this. You're just giving a teaser tonight.
Yeah. Back on. The reason why infrastructure is important is because think about this. An operating system is nothing but a community. An operating system is nothing but a community. Somebody in the thing says something about Apple, something bad about Apple. All Apple has done is built an ecosystem. Therefore, they built we look at the OS as the operating system. No, the operating system is the entire ecosystem. Why? Because you have the Apple TV, you have the MacBook Pro, you have the iMac, you have my daughter bought me the new Apple HomePod. All of these things connect. Well, isn't that what a community does? All a community is an ecosystem that provides all the things that sustains the ecosystem. You have your hospitals, you have your businesses, right? You have your food, your groceries. That's all an operating system is. If you have Black Wall Street was an operating system. So an operating system is just a community. Now, apps, because now we're moving toward apps. Apps are just the houses that's in the operating system, and we, the users, are the residents in the houses. And so that's how we have. So if we want to create change and go above, as Gabe mentioned, get above the saturation, then you have to build unique operating systems or ecosystems or communities that allow that other people, that Tachi builds an ecosystem. She builds a community like, oh my goodness, I want to be a part of that. So I build. Look, isn't that what blockchain has done? If anybody in here understands what cryptocurrency, you have Ether, you have different type of currencies that allow you to build on that platform. So you can build different type of things on top of that platform. It's the same concept. So if Tachi built an operating system or an ecosystem, and I'm like, wow, and I see the people there, I see the community that's being, I want to build an app that where I can take advantage of those people that's in that ecosystem. And then somebody else is going to build another app, but they might build an app that deals with health. Another person might build an app that deals with fintech. Another person might do, and it strengthens the operating system. It strengthens the ecosystem. That's how tech trumps tech. And that's why acquisition is so important. I don't invest in Facebook because of Facebook. I invest in Facebook because of Instagram. They own Instagram. They acquired it, and Instagram is crushing it. People are selling products on Instagram. People using Instagram as their stores. People using Instagram as their way to talk and communicate and video. You got to understand, Instagram is actually trumping Facebook. So what they're doing, they're in great, but what they're doing is because they own it, it's a part of their ecosystem. It's a part of their operating system.
So
wow. Tachi, I see you writing down stuff, so please go for it. I know you've been writing down some.
Because I didn't want to forget, so I was writing down the stuff. So in terms of the ecosystem, I mean, 100% askew with everything. What we have to remember is that we don't own any of those platforms. So at the end of the day, those platforms should be used as ways to drive people to your own platform. Nothing wrong with using them. You should use them. They're free. Use them. But don't let that be your end all and be all, because you'll end up with nothing if they go belly up. Meerkat, who said that? Anyway, also, what you were talking about in terms of this ecosystem is exactly the crux of IoT, the Internet of Things.
That's right.
So where all of these different connected devices, your smart homes, where they all work together. That's something that we also started to see crop up a lot in 2018. There's the whole concept of the smart home, and then this beginning of the Internet of Things, because what's going to happen is the Internet of Things will be interconnected everywhere. So you've got your car and you're driving, and it tells you that the bridge up ahead is icy to take another route because the bridge has communicated to you. So that's where we're going in terms of everything being interconnected. So exactly, Askia, spot on with this whole infrastructure.
No, Tachi, you drove it home. Let me tell you something. IoT is so important because what's driving IoT is artificial intelligence.
Yes, that's all AI. Absolutely.
That's all AI, and that's what's driving Internet of Things. How many people in here, when they get in their car and if they have an Apple, their phone is telling you because they're now studying your behavior, right? And they're saying, oh, you got 10 minutes to your next spot. You're like, how you know? Because what they do is they're tracking your behavior. They're saying, well, normally on Sunday, you're driving, you're going to church. Or normally on Saturday, you're going to a football game. You're going. And so what they recognize is what they're doing, they're studying your behavior. And now
recognizing patterns.
And that's what Internet of Things is doing. Internet of Things is connecting your lights with your TV and your TV with your phone and your phone with your garage and everything. But they're also applying AI so that they can study your behavior. And now maybe even that's why it's so crazy. If you ever notice when you look, let's say you're searching, you want to buy a gift for your nephew or your niece or your son or daughter, you're like looking at some shoes, or you're looking at a toy or something, and all of a sudden when you go on Facebook, an ad for that toy follows you, or you go to another site, that ad for that toy follows you. That's AI. And I think that's very, very, and that's why I'm very careful. Like I use a browser when I do some called Brave browser. It's not completely decentralized, but it's made by a group of guys that are in the blockchain space. So they block all of the AI. They block it. Sometimes I just don't want to be followed. Sometimes I don't want my search. You know what I mean? Right. So yeah, but no, that's but to add one more point, what you said is so important, Tachi. I had to mention that to a young guy who was, he mentioned the Colin Kaepernick situation, and a lot of athletes, they love to say, well, I just want to use my platform. I want to use my platform in the NFL or the NBA. Well, first of all, let me say this before, I love Colin. Colin is the real deal, but where is his platform now? He thought he had a platform. And as Tachi said so eloquently, he doesn't own that platform. And a lot of times people think just because you use something, You own it. They can take your Facebook account from you. They can take your Twitter account from you. But people like, and if you're building your entire infrastructure, as Tachi just said, it's so important. If you're building your entire business, you're running your e-commerce, there's nothing wrong to use that as a way to connect. But I know people, and I've told them, you got to migrate that over to something that you own. I know people that do all their business on Facebook. They build their store through Facebook. They do all. I say, what happens one day if somebody reports you, or just because they hate you, or they say you said something, this and that, and even if they just flag you for a while and take you down for a moment, you can't even make any money now. Even if they resolve it, you got to go through a period of time where you're not, you're back against the wall because you don't own your own, as Tachi said, your own platform. Use these platforms as a way to ingratiate yourself with the right community, understanding who your target is, and pull them over to the platform that you own.
Exactly. I wanted to say one other thing, Dr. Vibe, about the oversaturation. If you go to any grocery store, there is an aisle where there is bread. There are 10 million different types of bread, yet at some point, somebody buys all of them. In order for anything to become a mass medium, there has to, as Askia was saying, there needs to be a certain level of saturation. Mm-hmm. So, something becomes a mass medium when it reaches a saturation point. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, that saturation in a sense is necessary. However, that makes it very difficult to stand above the rest unless you study and wade through the saturation and see what is it that makes me different and or better, than bread brand A. That's so right. You have to study and understand what your niche is and what makes you better. I mean, that's the same thing I think that a lot of us that got into live streaming did. Before I even got on and did a single live stream, I sat for about a month or so and watched what other people were doing. And that's how I discovered that my niche was media, tech, and pop culture. Because though there were a lot of people talking about tech, nobody was doing all three. No Black women were doing it. I said, that's me. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So you have to understand where you fill in gaps in the space. So it can be saturated, like YouTube is saturated as hell. But look at what is not being offered on YouTube and say, maybe that is what my niche is. Maybe that's how I rise above the saturation.
You know what, Tashi? Okay. Almost every restaurant you go to has a hamburger on the menu. Almost every restaurant you go to. So what you just said is so brilliant. What saturation does is create trends. That's all it really does. When something becomes saturated, now you have the ability to be able to identify or segment something that becomes a trend and pull that out and monetize that. That's all that is. You can't turn the TV on and say that content isn't oversaturated already. Sometimes I was just telling my wife the other day, I'm like, we got 1 million channels and there's nothing to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to jump in quickly and just say some shout outs. Sharice Taylor has come in the house. Welcome, Taylor, for you. I got to catch up on some of these comments. You First Sight said, I remember Master P, the rapper, selling CDs out of his car that helped him negotiate a better record deal. Right. I think the line of the night goes to #1 troublemaker Natalie Cruz saying, I need my 40 acres, Tesla, and a MacBook Pro 2035. Let's see. There's comments here. Encourage you to look at what sells. What sells is the ordinary customer-to-customer business. Natalie Cruz said there's too many Trumps used in Dr. Vibe's scope. No comments. What else we got here? Enlightened _ twice up says IoT sucks unless it's absolutely secure. Hachi said it will never be secure. Stolen metadata will ruin all sheep. Rico is correct. Enlighten Up also says unless you own the web host, you don't own your website either.
But you know what? That's a great point. Look, at the end of the day, whenever it comes down to ownership. Now let's use that for an example. To own a web host, all you need is a computer for the most part. Now there's other things that's going to play in that. You got to be able to make sure that you have the infrastructure in place to be able to. But I know a lot of people that host their own websites in their basement. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They host their own, and so that's a great. But at the end of the day, we can always go down that rabbit hole as far as, you know, where someone's going to be at the other end. It's almost like, you know, I've owned my own business for 10 years, but at the end of the day, I still have a boss, so to speak, because I have to serve my clients. And at the end of the day, I have to make sure, even though I control my day, I set my own schedule. I still, if I want to be able to sustain and scale my business, there is still a component or an aspect of something that I still have to answer to or serve, so to speak. But that's a great point. That's a really good point.
I mean, but you could go down that rabbit hole, as you said, with a lot of things. You could own your house, but the government could still do eminent domain and take it if they need the land that's on there. So you could really do that with anything. I think there are levels. I think on the less evil end of it is having a website or having an app that runs where you can actually control the content, even if you don't have your own server, as opposed to having everything on social media that you don't own.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I can own my house, have it paid off outright, but you're going to be paying property tax for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's a great point. It's not to belittle that comment. That's an excellent point. It's a very, very, very excellent point, because that's also important. And again, that's another business idea. That's another opportunity. You know, that's something that's an opportunity now to say, hey, maybe I should start my own hosting company. And I know people that do. So, you know, look, those are just ideas. You know, those are just ways to say, hey, how can I have as much ownership as possible? I guess that's the best way of saying it.
Well, we're going to have to start winding it down, because I believe Get Vocal only allows you 2 hours of recorded time, and we're getting close to that point right now. So what I'm going to do is get Rico, again, thanks for coming in. You're going to come back on, you and I. You're going to have to talk about some of this stuff, because you're dropping some serious knowledge bombs that people need to know about, and you have the evaluated experience. But just in closing, when you look over this year in media, tech, and pop culture, some quick final thoughts that you'd have to share?
Oh man, I would probably say, for me personally, blockchain, fintech that Tachi touched on, because that is the integration of basically the financial industry and technology. But also, when you incorporate the blockchain, it gives you, hopefully, you know, the problem right now, blockchain is here to stay. Now, people have their feelings about cryptocurrency. I don't think that's going anywhere either, to be honest with you. I think the biggest problem what happened with cryptocurrency is that it's like we threw a party and somebody invited some people that weren't supposed to be there. And that's really what happened with crypto. I'm just being honest with you. That's what really hurt cryptocurrency the most. It became saturated, as someone said, and people kept coming in, but they didn't understand it. And for some people, it became this, oh, I can get rich quick, but not understanding the concepts behind some of these platforms, what they were trying to do, what they were trying to build, the infrastructure. They weren't even concerned about that. They just wanted to put money in and get money out. So it became a trading system, instead of realizing that a lot of these things are really solving problems. A lot of these ideas and these ICOs are solving problems. Now, some aren't. It's some bad ICO, but it's some bad IPOs. There's some bad companies that's trading on the stock exchange. So that's just what it is. But I would say, for me, blockchain, fintech technology, because I'm incorporating that in my next chapter of my bit of what I'm going to start doing in the future, as far as how I want to do things, as far as help. One of the things I'm going to start doing is getting into venture capital. So that's one of the things that my goal in the next couple of years. So for me, I want to make sure I have a better understanding of the blockchain, better understanding of fintech. In closing, I would say if you're using PayPal, if you're using Square, if you're using some of these, that's fintech. Square. Like one of the things that Square is doing already, Square is now lending money, because now they're able to see the transactions. So if your business is using the Square platform, they already know how much money you're making because they're processing that money.
Right.
They're processing those transactions. So now they can see that, hey, Dr. Vibe is a great candidate for a particular business loan because we know what this company is making. So for me, I would say the most exciting thing I've seen this year and what I'm excited about going into the next couple of years is probably blockchain and fintech.
Tachi, last thought. Probably got about 4 minutes left.
Okay, so I am you're asking what I'm excited about or just final kind of wrap-ups?
Wrap up.
Okay, so some of the things that we're seeing, like going to the media side, that I would like to change. We're seeing a lot of reboots, okay, in terms of entertainment. There are a lot of reboots, and this to me says lack of inclusivity in the space. So again, if you're rebooting things that happened before, you're not including the voices of these new creators for the most part. So I'd like to, if we're talking about really expanding diversity and inclusion in entertainment, then we need to not only just stop the reboots, but allow a space for fresh air for these new ideas to come in. Also, I really see something happening with, even though not maybe on the large scale, and it seems like VR is kind of, something is going to happen with VR. I don't know exactly what, but there is, you can feel it in the air. Something is going to, VR is going to go beyond a cool thing and become an integral thing. So look for VR on the horizon. Also, even though we didn't get to it this year, ATSC 3.0 is the new broadcast standard that was proposed a couple of years ago, and they said they're actually going to do it. So now it's just for the local broadcast stations and broadcast stations to switch over to it. And this new platform is supposed to make broadcast more interactive. Look for some more things in ATSC 3.0.
Well, I've got like a minute and a half, so I'm just going to say thanks to Tachi. Thanks for Askia. Thanks for Galen for coming on live. I'd like to thank everyone who came on Get Vocal. It'd be too long of a list because we don't got that much time. I'm going to get cut off. Also on Periscope, I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to say if you want to catch epic conversation like this, I'm the host of Epic Conversations, and this is the place for Epic Conversations. You can also watch replays on my website, thedrvibeshow.com. As always, I like to say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Next up, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions. And finally, I'd like to say, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Come back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. where I'll have LaRon Barton talking about an article he just wrote called Why I Don't Code Switch. God bless, well, and keep the faith.